Okay, let's unpack this. 90%. That's a pretty staggering number, isn't it? Senior HR leaders agreeing that transitions into new roles, they're the most challenging times for leaders.
It really is. 90%. It just jumps out at you.
And get this, nearly three-quarters, 75% believe that how you start, that early success, it's a really strong predictor of how things will go overall.
Yeah, it sets the trajectory, doesn't it? Makes you think.
Totally. So whether you're maybe looking at a new role yourself or, you see colleagues going through it those first few months, they got immense power.
hmm The weight of that statistic is fascinating. It really underscores this fundamental truth. How you begin profoundly influences where you end up.
A misstep early on.
Yeah, it can create a real uphill battle, but get it right.
And you set this powerful positive motion going.
Exactly.
And that's precisely what we're diving into today. We're getting right into Michael D. Watkins' brilliant book, The First 90 Days.
Ah, classic.
Right. Think of this as your express lane, maybe, to mastering those crucial first months. We're pulling out the core strategies, the key insights.
The actionable stuff.
Exactly. Practical takeaways you can actually use right now in your own situation.
And Michael Watkins, I mean, for anyone who hasn't come across his work, he brings serious credibility here. Longtime Harvard Business School professor.
Right.
Really dedicated himself to understanding leadership transitions. It's interesting. Before this book, he even co-authored one just on senior executive transitions.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and apparently back then, some colleagues focusing on transitions was, well, a bit niche.
Niche, given the impact. That's kind of funny, isn't it?
It is ironic, yeah, because the first 90 days, which came out in, what, 2003, it just exploded.
Absolutely. Dominated the Business Week bestseller list for like over a year.
And it's still going strong. Nearly 800,000 copies sold just in English, translated into 27 languages.
Wow.
And it even became the basis for an e-learning tool from Harvard Business Publishing. That kind of staying power over 2 decades. It says a lot.
It really does. Speaks volumes about its value.
It highlights how universal these challenges are for leaders during transitions. And Watkins' framework, it's just endured. His ongoing work with Genesis advisors, helping organizations accelerate transitions, it just reinforces how practical these principles are. He's seen firsthand what works, what doesn't, in countless real situations.
So our mission for this deep dive, it's pretty straightforward. Give you a blueprint, help you reach that really important break-even point in a new role faster.
Yeah, that break-even point where you start contributing more value than you're consuming.
Exactly. And Watkins argues, pretty convincingly, I think, that if you actively use these principles, you could potentially cut that time down by like 40%.
And that's huge.
Yeah.
40% faster. Imagine getting up to speed, making a real contribution in almost half the time it might normally take.
Game changer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Less stress for you, boosts your confidence, and, well, the organization benefits much sooner, too.
So whether you're actively prepping for a new role, or maybe you're supporting someone on your team going through it, or you're just curious about mastering this really pivotal career phase, you're in the right place.
Definitely.
Okay, let's dive into the foundations. What are the core ideas Watkins emphasizes, and crucially, what are the most common traps people fall into?
Right. Well, the fundamental principle, the big idea at the heart of it is this.
Yeah.
Transition failure isn't just about the leader having flaws or, being put in an impossible, unwinnable situation. More often, it actually comes down to a mismatch between what the new role demands and the individual's ability to adapt their skills, their approach to that specific context.
So it's about the fit or lack thereof.
Precisely. Even really successful leaders can stumble if they don't recognize that dynamic and adjust.
So the key insight here is really that success hinges on adapting to the new role's demands, not just leaning on what made you successful before. That's such a crucial distinction. You could be a star somewhere, but miss the mark completely if you don't adapt. So what about these transition traps he warns about? What are some common ones?
He highlights several big ones. First, there's the trap of sticking rigidly to what worked for you in the past.
Right, the if it ain't broke fallacy applied incorrectly.
Exactly. Just because a strategy or style worked before doesn't mean it will now. New challenges, different culture. Think about, say, a marketing director who is amazing at detailed planning. Now, leading a super fast-paced sales team where agility is everything, that planning-heavy approach, it could suddenly become a real hindrance.
Okay, so don't assume past success translates directly. Be ready to adapt. Makes sense. What's another trap?
Another big one is coming in with the answer.
Ah, the know-it-all new arrival.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Eager to make an impact, maybe they rush in with pre-baked solutions before really understanding the situation.
Mm.
And that can just alienate the team, undermine morale, and you might end up fixing the wrong problem anyway.
Yeah, like the new engineering VP who mandates a total process overhaul on day 2 based on their last job.
Exactly. Without understanding the current team, why things are the way they are.
Mm-hmm.
So the insight is resist that urge. Prioritize understanding first.
Tough lesson, but valuable.
Yeah.
And a third common trap.
Neglecting horizontal relationships.
Hmm.
Your peers, other key stakeholders across the business.
Oh, interesting. So not just up and down the org chart.
Right. New leaders often focus understandably on their team and their boss, but they frequently underestimate how much peers and colleagues in other departments can impact their success.
Oh, so.
Well, if you don't understand their perspectives, build alliances, foster collaboration, you could end up isolated,
Yeah.
unable to navigate the landscape, get things done. You need those bridges.
So build bridges with peers and stakeholders. They're crucial. These traps, they resonate because they feel so human, don't they?
Really do. Easy to fall into, especially under pressure.
Definitely. So as you're listening, maybe take a moment. Have you fallen into these traps? Are you maybe at risk in your current role or one coming up? Okay, so we know what not to do. Let's flick it. Proactive strategies. How does Watkins advise actively preparing yourself?
Preparation is key.
Yeah.
Absolutely fundamental. Watkins stresses letting go of the past and embracing the imperatives of the new situation. That mental shift is the first step.
Letting go and embracing the new. Okay.
Then he breaks down specific prep strategies, mainly looking at the two most common transitions: promotions within the same company and joining a completely new one.
Let's start with promotions. That's pretty common for listeners, I imagine. Moving up internally, what are the challenges there, even if you know the company?
Right. Even with familiar ground, promotions bring new demands. A shift in perspective is needed. Watkins highlights balancing the depth of your old role with the increased breadth of the new one.
So letting go of the weeds a bit.
Exactly. You can't stay buried in the tactical details you used to manage. You have to elevate your focus. Broader strategy and delegation. It becomes essential, not just nice to have.
Makes sense.
Plus, you need to communicate your strategy, your vision, much more broadly. Think town halls, company-wide emails, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And finally, he talks about exhibiting the right presence. What does leadership look like at this new level? What are the expected behaviors, communication style? What's your personal leadership brand going to be?
That idea of presence is really interesting. It's more than just doing the job.
It really is.
Yeah.
So for promotions, shift focus to strategy, delegate, communicate vision broadly, and consciously develop that leadership presence.
Got it. Now let's tackle the other big one, joining a completely new company. That often feels like a much bigger hurdle.
It's definitely perceived as more challenging. Remember those HR stats? Watkins uses that powerful organ transplant analogy.
Oh.
If you don't adapt thoughtfully, integrate carefully, the organization's immune system might reject you. So, he outlines 4 critical focus areas here: business orientation, stakeholder connection, expectations alignment, and cultural adaptation.
Right, let's break those down. Business orientation first. What does that mean in practice?
It's about rapidly getting a solid handle on the business basics, proactively seeking out public info, financials, products, strategy, brands.
Doing your homework beforehand?
Absolutely. Watkins suggests asking for a briefing book if that's common practice there. And if you can, arranging facility tours even before day one. That provides incredible context. The key action is research the business fundamentals before you start.
Makes sense. Get the lay of the land. What about stakeholder connection when you're the new kid on the block?
This is about proactively identifying and building relationships with the key people you'll work with. Your new boss can be a huge help here, making introductions early. And Watkins really emphasizes, don't just focus vertically, your team, your boss. Focus laterally. Peers, people in other departments whose support you'll need. Get those intro meetings scheduled in your first few weeks. It's critical.
So prioritize meeting key stakeholders across the board early on. Got it. Next up, expectations alignment. Seems obvious, but why is it so vital in a new company?
Because assumptions are dangerous. You need to be crystal clear on what your boss expects, what outcomes, how should you work, how often should you communicate. and how.
Don't just rely on the interview process discussions?
Definitely not. Watkins advises having explicit conversations about expectations with your boss in the very first week. Same goes for discussing working styles with your boss, with your direct reports. It prevents so much potential friction later. Clarify planning processes, performance management too.
Okay, key action. Explicit conversations in week 1 about expectations and styles. Crystal clear communication. Finally, cultural adaptation. This often feels like the trickiest part. How do you navigate a new culture?
Yeah, culture is complex, multi-layered. Watkins talks about visible symbols, logos, office layout, then observable behaviors, shared language, and finally, those deep, often unspoken assumptions and values.
Stuff under the surface.
Exactly. He recommends adopting an anthropologist mindset. Observe. Seek to understand patterns. How are decisions made? How is conflict handled? What gets rewarded? What gets discouraged?
Like you're studying a new tribe?
Kind of.
Yeah.
He suggests talking to your boss, HR, about the culture. Find culture interpreters, people who seem to get it. And maybe after 30 days or so, do an informal check-in with your boss and peers. How am I adapting? Any feedback?
Proactive feedback seeking. Good idea.
The key is approaching the new culture with curiosity. Observe, learn, seek out those interpreters.
And he provides that checklist too, right, for identifying norms around influence, meetings, decisions, communication, conflict.
Yeah, really helpful, because understanding those unwritten rules is essential for integrating successfully. What's normal in one place can be totally wrong in another.
Right. Failing to adapt there could really damage your credibility.
Absolutely. Hinders relationships, achieving your goals. It's crucial.
Okay, so you've done the prep. Understand the business, build relationships, align expectations, learn the culture. What's the next critical piece, according to Watkins?
Assessing your own potential vulnerabilities in this new context. We all have what he calls problem preferences.
Problem preferences, meaning?
Types of challenges we naturally gravitate towards, enjoy solving. Which is great, leads to expertise, but it can also create blind spots in areas we find less engaging.
Ah, okay. So you might be great technically, but hate the politics, or vice versa.
Exactly. The book has a couple of simple self-assessment tables looking at your interest in different problem domains, functional areas. Low scores can signal potential vulnerabilities you need to be aware of and manage.
So if you realize you have low interest in, say, navigating organizational politics, but your new role demands a ton of stakeholder management, that's a red flag.
Precisely. That's a potential blind spot you need to address.
Yeah.
And the insight is, understand your preferences. Identify those potential blind spots.
And how do you compensate if you find one?
Watkins suggests 3 things. 1, conscious self-discipline. Deliberately spend time on critical things you might not naturally enjoy.
Grit your teeth and do it?
Sort of. 2, strategic team building. Surround yourself with people whose strengths complement your weaknesses, especially in your blind spot areas.
Smart. Leverage the team.
And 3, proactively seek advice and counsel from mentors, experienced colleagues, even your boss who are strong where you're weaker. Get their guidance.
Okay, so identify the gaps, then mitigate through discipline, team building, and seeking advice. Very proactive.
Yeah.
He also talks about reworking your network, right?
Yeah.
And watching out for people who might hold you back.
Yes, exactly. As you move up, the kind of network support you need changes. Early on, maybe it's technical advisors.
Deep expert.
Right. But in more senior roles, you increasingly need political counselors. People who understand the organizational landscape, help you navigate it.
The savvy ones.
Yeah. And personal counselors, people who offer objective perspective, emotional support during stressful transitions. So reworking your network means consciously identifying and cultivating these new kinds of relationships.
Reaching out to different types of people.
Exactly. More senior leaders, maybe people known for their political acumen, mentors for the new level challenges.
And what about the slightly awkward part, people holding you back?
Yeah, transitions shift dynamics. Not everyone's thrilled. Your old boss might not want to let go. Former peers who now report to you might struggle.
That can be tricky.
Watkins advises negotiating clear expectations and a clean handover when leaving your old role. Manage the dynamic with former peers firmly but fairly. Be ready for early tests of authority.
And if someone is actively undermining you?
Well, if they're unwilling to accept the new reality, you might, unfortunately, have to make the tough call to remove them from your immediate team. Protect your progress.
Tough, but sometimes necessary. So evolve your network and be prepared to address resistance.
Right. It's about understanding yourself, the relationships, and potential obstacles.
Okay, so preparation is done. What's the next crucial step in the first 90 days?
Accelerating your learning. Watkins sees learning about the new organization, people, challenges, opportunities as a critical investment.
An investment, not just a passive activity.
Exactly. Effective, efficient learning early on. That builds the foundation for your 90-day plan. It reduces your vulnerability to missteps. The faster you learn, the sooner you can make informed decisions and act effectively.
So prioritize and actively accelerate learning. But he warns about learning roadblocks, doesn't he? What gets in the way?
Yeah, two big ones. Feeling totally overwhelmed by all the new information.
Information overload. Yep, been there.
Right. And the other is the action imperative. That strong urge, especially for ambitious leaders, to jump in and do something, make changes, before fully understanding things.
The need to show you're making an impact immediately.
Exactly. But it can create a death spiral. Poorly informed decisions undermine credibility. People share less info, leading to more bad decisions.
Like that VP changing processes on day 2 again?
Perfect example.
Yeah.
So resist that urge. Prioritize understanding over immediate action.
Okay, resist the action imperative. How do you actually accelerate learning effectively then?
With a systematic process. Define a clear learning agenda.
A learning agenda, like specific questions.
Yes. Key questions you want answered, hypotheses you want to test, he gives examples, questions about the past performance, root causes, past changes, questions about the present vision, strategy, people, processes, potential landmines, early win opportunities, and questions about the future strategic shifts, future challenges.
So it focuses your effort.
Precisely. Helps you gather the most relevant info to find that focused learning agenda.
Great, so you have your questions. Who do you ask? Where do you find the best insights?
Watkins splits sources into inside and outside the organization. Inside, your boss. Direct reports often have amazing frontline knowledge. Peers, people in core operations like R&D or manufacturing.
Yeah.
Customer-facing folks like sales, staff functions like finance, HR, legal, project managers or product managers who work across teams. And what he calls natural historians.
Natural historians.
Long-tenured employees who really know the history, the culture, the informal politics. Invaluable.
Got it. And outside the organization.
Former employees, they can be very candid. Customers, suppliers, consultants who've worked with the company, board members, investors, industry analysts for an objective view. Seek diverse perspectives. That's key.
Identify and talk to a wide range of internal and external people. Makes sense. But how do you avoid just getting swayed by the loudest voices or missing the big picture?
By adopting structured learning methods, don't just rely on casual chats. He recommends the 5 key questions to ask everyone.
Okay, what are they?
1. Biggest challenges the organization faces. 2. Why these challenges. 3. Most promising unexploited opportunities. 4. What's needed to capitalize on those opportunities. And 5, if you were me, what would you focus on first?
Asking those same 5 questions to everyone.
Well, to a wide range of people, yes. It lets you spot common themes, identify different viewpoints, and avoids getting overly influenced by the first or loudest person you talk to.
That's really smart, systematic. He also provides that learning plan template, doesn't he? What are the key bits there?
Yeah, it's structured into before entry and soon after entry. Before starting, research externally, talk to the new boss, predecessor if possible, form initial hypotheses and questions. Soon after starting, review data, do focus one-on-ones with reports using your questions, assess key interfaces with other departments, test strategic alignment top-down and awareness bottom-up, analyze core processes, need those integrators, and natural historians.
It's a roadmap for learning.
Exactly. Following that structured approach helps ensure you cover all the critical areas systematically.
Okay, so proactive prep, accelerated learning. That's the foundation. What's the next big piece Watkins emphasizes for new leaders?
Matching your strategy to the situation. He argues strongly against any one-size-fits-all leadership approach. It's ineffective, even dangerous.
Right. Context matters.
Hugely. Your strategy has to be tailored to the specific challenges and opportunities you inherit. And that's where his STARS model comes in.
STARS, right. What does that stand for again?
STARS.
Avril?
Startup, turnaround, accelerated growth, realignment, and sustaining success.
Okay, 5 distinct situations.
Exactly. Each has unique characteristics, challenges, opportunities. Startup, building something new. Turnaround, fixing something broken. Urgent action needed. Accelerated growth, managing rapid expansion. Realignment, adapting an established organization to major shifts, often involving tough changes. Sustaining success,
Right.
maintaining high performance, avoiding complacency.
And you wouldn't lead a turnaround the same way you'd lead a startup.
Precisely. The book has a table summarizing the key differences. So the key insight is, understand these 5-star situations, because each demands a different approach.
How do you figure out which situation or mix of situations you're actually in?
Good question. Often a role involves a portfolio of these. The book has a framework, Table 3.2, to help you diagnose your STARS portfolio.
Okay.
You identify which parts of your role, projects, processes, business units fall into each category. Then you estimate how much time and effort you should ideally allocate to each during the first 90 days.
So it helps you prioritize.
Yes. And it also encourages you to think about your own leadership preferences versus what the situation actually demands. Diagnose your portfolio. Prioritize effort accordingly.
It's about conscious choices on where to focus energy. He also talks about the different organizational psychology in each STARS situation, right? The mood.
Absolutely. Startups often have excited confusion. Your job is to focus that energy. Turnarounds might feel like despair. You need to instill hope, provide a clear plan.
Makes sense.
Accelerated growth needs more discipline to manage the pace. Realignment often faces denial about the need for change. And sustaining success battles complacency. An understanding that prevailing mood is crucial for tailoring your leadership.
So you can shift the dynamics productively, be aware of the psychology, adapt your leadership. This is all really insightful. It really drives home the need for adaptability. Okay, so you understand the situation. What's the next absolutely critical step for success?
Negotiating success. And this all comes down to building a productive relationship with your new boss.
The boss relationship.
Crucial.
Paramount. Watkins says it's arguably the most important relationship to focus on in the first 90 days. He gives some practical don'ts, too.
Like what?
Don't stay away. Don't surprise your boss, especially with bad news. Don't go around them. Don't criticize the person you replaced. Don't get defensive. And definitely don't try to manage your boss.
Sounds like basic professionalism, but easy to slip up under pressure. So what should you do?
He introduces the 5 conversations framework, a tool for building that strong working relationship. 5 conversations. Okay, what are they?
Situational diagnosis, expectations, style, resources, and personal development. Proactively having these 5 conversations is key.
Let's break those down. Situational diagnosis conversation first. Goal.
Goal is shared understanding of the business situation you've inherited. Use the STARS model as a common language. What's their view of the portfolio? Challenges, opportunities, resources. If you're not aligned on the starting point, getting support later will be tough.
Get on the same page about the reality. Got it. Next, expectations conversation. What needs clarifying here?
This is about explicitly clarifying what they expect from you. Outcomes, deliverables. How should you work? How often? How should you communicate progress, roadblocks? Get this clear early to avoid misunderstandings. Make sure you're focused on their priorities.
Define success clearly. Makes sense. Third is style. Sounds more personal.
It is. Discussing working styles, communication preferences, how you each like to give and receive feedback. Detailed reports or quick chats. How do you handle constructive criticism? Understanding these preferences smooths the path.
Avoid unnecessary friction. Okay. Fourth conversation. Resources. What's negotiated here?
Open discussion about what you need to succeed. Tangible resources budget people. Intangible access to people. Information. What you need depends on your STARS portfolio, right? A turnaround needs different support than sustaining success.
Right.
And Watkins distinguishes between playing the game, working within existing rules to get resources, and changing the game, which might be needed in turnarounds or realignments where fundamental shifts are required. You need to advocate strongly then.
Know when to work within the system and when to push for change. Critical distinction. Finally, fifth conversation. Personal development. When does this happen?
Watkins suggests around the 90-day mark. Once the relationship has developed a bit, it's not a formal review, more a constructive chat. How's it going? What's working? Areas for improvement. Skills to develop. Address shortcomings. Discuss hard skills and soft skills like cultural diagnosis, negotiation, coalition building.
Okay, check in on progress and development needs around 90 days. This framework seems really solid for building that boss relationship. What about multiple bosses or working remotely? Any quick tips?
Multiple bosses. Even more critical to balance wins-losses. Align their perspectives and expectations. Avoid conflicting priorities. Working remotely. Over-communicate. Use clear metrics. Make extra effort for in-person meetings early on to build rapport.
Good points. And he suggests using this framework with your own team, too.
Yeah. The 5 conversations can be valuable for ensuring clear expectations and communication with your direct reports as well.
Okay, great. So prep done, learning accelerated, strategy matched, boss relationship initiated. What's the next essential piece for the first 90 days?
Securing early wins. Watkins stresses this. Tangible early successes build your credibility, create positive momentum, start an upward cycle.
And early losses are hard to recover from.
Very. They can really damage your reputation and influence. So he outlines some basic principles for getting those early wins.
Does.
First, focus. Pick a few promising opportunities. Don't try to do everything. Choose things with a high chance of success that align with priorities.
Okay.
Second, get wins that matter to your boss, even if they aren't your top priority initially. Builds trust.
Shows you're listening.
Exactly. Third, get wins the right way, consistent with the desired culture. How you achieve things matters.
Right.
Fourth, consider your star's portfolio. What builds momentum differs. A quick fix in a turnaround might be different from a foundational step in a startup. And fifth, adjust for the culture. Are individual or team wins valued more? Tailor your approach.
So focus on a few key achievable wins that matter to the boss and fit the culture. It's not just any win. He talks about 2 phases for this, right?
Yes. Phase 1, roughly the first 30 days, is about building personal credibility. Competence, reliability, listening, delivering on small things, making a good impression.
Well, laying the groundwork.
Right. Phase 2 shifts towards achieving tangible performance improvements, demonstrable business results that show you can make a real impact.
So credibility first, then results. He also mentions understanding your reputation. How does that factor in?
People form opinions quickly, right?
Yeah.
Based on your past, the interview, gossip.
Yeah.
Watkins talks about confirmation bias. People look for info that confirms what they already think. So be aware of your existing reputation, good or bad. Then decide. Do you want to reinforce those expectations or strategically confound them by showing different skills or behaviors? Be intentional about the signals you send early on.
Actively manage your initial image. Powerful idea. Lastly, on early wins, he contrasts different ways to initiate change, planning versus learning.
Right. A pure planning approach, develop a plan, implement top-down, can work well in turnarounds where problems are clear, people want direction.
Okay.
But in other situations, especially realignments with resistance or denial, a more collaborative approach focused on building awareness and collective learning might be better.
How would that look?
Maybe sharing data showing the need for change, benchmarking against competitors, facilitated brainstorming. The book has a flowchart to help decide which approach fits. The key takeaway is often not to just blow up the existing culture. Elevate the good, change the bad. Match your change techniques to the situation.
Choose your change approach based on the situation and receptiveness.
Got it. Wow, this has been incredibly comprehensive. It's so clear that navigating a new role well is way more strategic than just working hard. To wrap up, what are maybe the 2 or 3 absolute must-remember, actionable takeaways for listeners?
Okay, 3 key things. First, prioritize systematic learning, starting even before day 1. Define your agenda, seek diverse views, resist that premature action imperative, understand first.
Learn constantly. Got it.
Second, remember every transition is unique. Diagnose your specific STARS situation, startup, turnaround, etc., and tailor your strategy and priorities accordingly. No one-size-fits-all.
Match strategy to situation.
Okay.
And third, make building a strong, open relationship with your new boss an absolute top priority from the start. Use those 5 conversations, diagnosis, expectations, style, resources, development, to build that essential foundation. Their support is critical.
Learn, diagnose the situation, build the boss relationship. Fantastic, actionable takeaways. So as you think about transitions happening around you, your own, colleagues consider how applying these principles that focus on learning, understanding the situation, building key relationships, how that could lead to much better outcomes. Or think back to a past transition you went through. Knowing this now from the first 90 days, what might you have done differently? It's about seeing transitions not just as something to survive, but as a critical window.
An opportunity.
Exactly. An opportunity to build credibility, create momentum, and set the stage for long-term success. And, with the right knowledge, a proactive approach, you really do have the capacity to navigate these pivotal times effectively and, well, truly thrive.